My name's Oliver Empton. I am the CEO of Silktide, and today I'm just going to be talking about how accessibility affects people in the real world. So over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to give you two brief but very practical examples of how accessibility actually affects people. I'm specifically going to look at what it's like to use the web without hands, and I'm going to look at what it's like to use the web without sight. And I think a lot of the time we talk about these in abstract ways. We talk about these like compliance or regulations, but I actually want to kind of show you what is that experience actually like for real people. So firstly, how do you browse the web without hands? Or indeed, how do you use a computer without hands? Many of us are so used to using a mouse or a keyboard or a trackpad, touch screen, whatever, that we can't really think of it any other way. This young man is Christopher Hills. He is a famous YouTube video producer. He records and edits his own videos, but he has cerebral palsy, and so he has severely limited motor function. Yet he's able to do all of this by himself, independently, with nothing more than a few button switches. So his complete control of his computer comes down to about 3 or 4 buttons, which you can just see in this photo are mounted in the back of his headrest. So he's able to press his head back into, I think in this case, 3 distinct buttons. And by depressing those in a coordinated fashion, he's literally able to operate a complete set of computers and video editing software, which is kind of amazing. And one of the great reasons why assistive technology makes such a difference. This is another form of input that many people I found are not familiar with. I mean, it's called a sip puff switch. And this essentially is a tube you feed into your mouth. And by making small sips or exhaling, breathing out into the tube, you are essentially able to send signals equivalent to flicking a switch to a computer. And again, through the use of that technology, you're able to operate a complete machine. Again, there's so many of these, I could go through 20 examples, but I'm just going to show you one more. This is a famous example, of course, the late Stephen Hawking. He used an infrared switch, which was mounted to his glasses, and this scanned the muscle in his cheek and essentially looked for twitching motions in his cheek. And believe it or not, simply by performing that action, by essentially flicking a switch, by twitching a muscle, he was able to type at a rate of 1 word per minute. And of course, he wrote multiple books on astrophysics at 1 word per minute, if you can imagine. Later on, through technical advances, he later gained the ability to have autocorrect and word suggestions, and that doubled his typing rate to 2 words per minute, which, if you can imagine, what a transformative change that is. And again, another great testament to how assistive technology can transform people's lives. But this is all theoretical. I kind of want to show you what that's like, right? So we haven't got a lot of time, so I'm just going to take a couple minutes here, but I'm going to try and show you what it's like to use the web if you only have switches. Now, I've rigged this up, so I'm obviously just using like these 3 fake switches here, but essentially I'm going to be able to go next, previous, and select things. This is a simple paradigm that will serve for our purposes. So I'm just going to come out of here. So here is a famous website. I'm sure you've all seen this one. This is GovUK, and they are doing just about everything right when it comes to accessibility. They have generally an excellent experience. And so if you're looking for examples to learn from, this is a pretty great one. The first thing that they're doing here, if I use those switches to step through the page, is you can see it's immediately very clear as I step forward what is selected, right? So I can easily see I have a feature selected. I can step back. And this is about as straightforward and clear as you could hope for. So if I wanted to learn about coronavirus, I can just go into that, and there we go. Nice and simple. Now, we take this for granted. This is kind of what you would expect everyone would do, but unfortunately, it really isn't. If I was to step into another website, so this is a fictional university I have created so as to protect the guilty, as it were. But I'm just going to show you the same kind of experience. So if you look closely as I step through this with my switches, I don't know if you can pick that out, but I've just selected that like the logo, if you will, on the top left. And as I step through it, if you look closely at the options here on the right, they will change color as I'm stepping forward and if I step back. So it's quite subtle. And this is actually an interesting point that I think a lot of people miss with accessibility. I think a lot of people think of accessibility as if it's on or off, as if it's something you pass or something you fail. And that really isn't true. What you're seeing here theoretically would pass WCAG. It would be compliant by the letter of that specification because you can actually see something is changing as I select it. But the experience is kind of terrible. If I was using this myself, I might struggle to see what's actually changed. It's quite subtle, right? There's only a very slight change here in the coloring. Whereas if you compare this to, again, GovUK, it's very, very clear. It's clearly been designed for people who are using through switches or a keyboard. And so, yes, this is a common mistake people make, and they often overlook that kind of distinction. Another thing would be, in this page, I have an important announcement in the middle, which is telling me, due to coronavirus, all students must register and complete their assessments online. And I should use the red button below to register. Now, okay, fine, I want to select that button, but when I try to press a button to go to it, I can't. In fact, I can step through the rest of the page, but I can't access that button. And that's just because the way this page was written is inaccessible. This specific button cannot be selected through anything other than using a mouse. A classic accessibility mistake, a relatively easy one to fix. But this is why that matters, because if you are using a machine through switches, you literally have no other choice. Okay, so I'm going to go back quickly to here. So my next example was, how do you browse the web without sight? How on earth can you use how can you browse the web when you can't see? And the answer is actually pretty much the same as everyone else. It turns out most people browse the web with their mobile phones. There's a common, perhaps slightly out of date misconception that people who are blind are sat in front of a computer using a screen reader or a braille reader, but the vast majority of them are, just like everyone else, using their phone. It's the primary computing device, it's portable, and it tends to have great accessibility built in. And I just want to take 5 minutes to quickly show you what that's actually like. So, at the risk of running a live demo, because these things can go so well, I have actually hooked up my iPhone here. So this is actually my real phone. I'm just broadcasting it, and I have a screen reader enabled on my phone. So I'm just going to unlock this.
Address www.gov.uk. Secure and validated connection.
So hopefully you can hear the voice. I've tested this in advance, but you never know. It is a live demo. But essentially, my phone is speaking to me as I select items on the screen. So although you can see my screen, I want you to imagine that you or myself are blind and there's no way to actually see anything. You are reliant entirely upon the voice that you hear. And you can step through the page in much the same way I stepped through earlier. So I can simply swipe.
Reload button. Skip to main content. Gov.uk. Coronavirus. COVID-19. Visited. Link.
So you can see how a screen reader makes it possible to experience the screen. But of course, very much like you have with the Switch, it becomes a linear experience. You're not able to see the page. You can't appreciate perhaps the layout or the colors, the positioning of elements. You're simply forced to step through it, right? There are alternative means I'm simplifying right now, but essentially you have to be able to experience it in a different context than just seeing what is there. And a lot of people miss this. So GovUK aren't one of them. GovUK have created a great experience here. They've done many, many things right. And one of the things they've done is they put the most important information right at the start. So I only had to swipe a couple of times and I found out about coronavirus. And if I went through it,
National Law, Brexit, visited, link, sign into your Universal Credit account.
Very easy to get to what I want. Now, another thing that you can do with a screen reader is you can skip through types of content. So I'm looking at text right now, but if I wanted, I might want to swipe through headings. So there's a gesture where
79 links.
where you rotate two fingers on a screen.
Headings. 30 headings.
And so now I can actually swipe.
Popular on gov.uk. Welcome to gov.uk. Popular on gov.uk.
So I'm able to swipe up and down across the screen and select different headings. So this allows me to go and quickly skim through an article, right? So I can just hear the headings of the article and get to it. Now, if you contrast this with another page.
Toolbar. Tabs. Welcome to gov.uk. PDFs. Button. Website not secure. About our open days.
It's great fun to listen to.
Open days.
So what we have here is much the same experience. Superficially, this seems accessible, but if I was to step through it, you'd start to notice a few problems.
Exclamation mark icon in circle.
So for one, they've decided to make every single icon a piece of text. So I have to listen to it reading out the exclamation marks, which is not very helpful. And if I wanted to select that red button earlier.
Important due to coronavirus. About our open days.
You'll see it's completely impossible. Sorry, I've got a few people talking. Could we make sure we're muted, please?
What's that?
Okay. Yes, and then if I wanted to continue down through the page and experience this content, I would actually have to have it. I would have to listen to all of it being read out. And the reason for that is because this page hasn't added accessible headings. So previously, I was able to just skip down, listen to the headings one by one whenever I wanted to. But in this case, if I tried it,
open days. Heading not found.
I get told there are no headings.
Heading not found.
I don't know if you can hear that, but it's saying heading not found. So I have no choice if I wanted to experience this page other than to listen to every single word on it, which you can imagine is quite infuriating. I would have to do this sort of thing.
Exclamation mark. Important due to about our due to honestly demo you learn about full you register campus to register for.
And that would take forever. Obviously, I'm skipping through it, but you would actually have to listen to it. So you can imagine how frustrating such a simple thing as adding headings to a page is and why it makes such a big difference to people's lives in reality. Anyway, we're very short on time, I appreciate, so I'm just going to mute that and let's go back here. So what can you do about it? Well, I highly recommend you learn to use screen readers and other accessible technologies like I just demonstrated. It doesn't take long. It takes about 20 minutes to pick up the basics, and you've already got one. If you have an iPhone or you have an Android phone, you have a screen reader or you have access to a free screen reader. Mobile screen readers are kind of the best ones anyway, so it's a good place to start. We also made this free Chrome plugin, which simulates a screen reader and a variety of other common accessibility issues, such as color blindness. You can go and download that for free. But basically, try and actually experience what people are going through, right? Don't treat it as an abstraction. Treat it as something you can learn from, you can empathize with. And then finally, just considering the consequences, as we should all know now with coronavirus, modern day life is completely dependent on the internet. And accessibility gives people unprecedented independence and freedom. Accessibility is amplifying human capability, to paraphrase what Hector said earlier. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity here for us all to take advantage of this and to actually help transform the quality of people's lives. And that's all I have today. Thank you very much. I should slightly amend by saying we're actually hiring accessibility advocates. So if you're as passionate about accessibility as I am, please feel free to check out that address. And thank you very much.